Now, good afternoon, everybody. Dia Gwynna Corja, Currently Ahas Urim Avet New. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be with you here in Wexford at your annual Congress. It's my first occasion to address a Teachers' Union conference, and hopefully it won't be the last. And I thank you for the welcome when I arrived, and I look forward to hearing your President speak. And I've heard some of the motions being debated from outside the room before I came in, so I want to thank you for your presence here. It is very much a public square. I welcome debate and engagement, and I expect that's exactly what we'll have today. I want to thank your top table, your General Secretary Michael Gillespie, President David Waters, Vice President Anthony Quinn, Deputy General Secretary Annette Dolan, and all the rest of your executive teams for the invitation to be with you today, and indeed to you, the delegates, for being here today and being part of the conference also. I want to say at the outset that I am honoured to have been given responsibility for the higher and further education and research and skills sectors in Ireland, a new department, and I'm looking forward to building upon the work of my predecessors and driving it on even further and representing you, the sector, the people that make the sector work, and working with you and for you over the years ahead. Since the department was created in 2020, we've reduced costs and created new and diverse pathways for learners, increased access, secured increased funding year on year, and pushed ahead with institutional change in the technological sector, as well as plans for FHERIS transformation. And I'm very aware those achievements have only been possible because of your support and your engagement and your collegiality, and I want to continue to tap into your knowledge, expertise and commitment as the sector continues to develop, because the best way to understand a sector is talk to the people who work in it, which is all of you here today. Abraham Lincoln once said that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of the government in the next. I think the philosophy of the staff room should be taken on very seriously by government also, and I hope it doesn't take a generation to do it. I want to look at some specific policy issues that I know are of interest, but I want to look at the bigger picture as well. We know from our media, whether it's on our daily newspaper or our phone feed, that the world continues to change, and in actual fact the only constant in life, I think, is change. So change is inevitable. It's how we respond to it, and in actual fact how we drive it and how we make change that shapes where we land. We see change across climate upheaval, technological disruptions, economic volatility, geopolitical tensions, war in Europe, and as the placards remind us today, war in the Middle East. And these are very real concepts that impinge upon every part of our lives and every part of our work as we go about our business. They impact on learners, on communities, on the labour market, on business, and on Ireland as a country, a republic and a nation. And that is why we continue to develop our technological universities. We plan for the FET College of the Future. We implement the skills strategy. We promote the digital transformation. We develop our green skills capabilities, and many more other projects. And that is not reform for the sake of it. It's reform, positive reform, to support individuals and wider society in the face of an uncertain future. Because I said that change is the only constant, but we want to seek positive change and positive impact for you, the members of TUI, and for our learners and students that we work with and that we support, and for the broader society. So we want to bring about positive change and be change makers ourselves. Starting with the technological university reform journey, we need to promote regional development and ensure alignment with workforce and enterprise needs at local levels. It has been great to see the growth and transformation of the technological universities in recent years, and I firmly believe they can be the key to unlocking Ireland's regional potential. The department, and I as Minister, is absolutely committed to continuing the development of the TUs and indeed the IoTs as a sector. I'm really excited and passionate about the opportunity that the TUs provide to be centres of excellence, to be research hubs, to be skills hubs, and to be regional hubs close to industry and close to the population in different parts of the country. On my couple of months I've had in the role, I've had the opportunity to visit a number, ATU, MTU, SETU, so far, and we'll get to the rest. TU Dublin as well, I've been to TUS and others we'll get to in the coming weeks. And I've been really impressed at the positivity, the passion, the engagement and the opportunity that the sector provides. But it's also true that it doesn't mean every institution could or should be exactly the same. Every institution and every region has its own unique characteristics, and TUs must have the freedom to respond to those local needs. So while the structures and priorities might differ in some institutions in some respects, but the overall ethos of regional development, expanded research capacity, and the opportunities provided to local learners should be the same. And that is what makes the sector the ethos across all. I want to talk about the staffing arrangements in our TUs, and primarily with professorships, because the other important ingredient in any sector is you, the staff. And I want to allay any concerns that there will continue to be a national academic structure with national grades and pay rates. And I think most of you in the room today will be well aware of the 2022 OECD report and the recommendations within. And to truly move forward in the TU agenda and fulfill the capacity and capability and opportunity of the sector, we have to look at academic career pathways and structures. At Congress last year, Minister Niall Collins, who was Minister of State in the department at the time, noted that the department was making the case for the introduction of a professorship grade to the sector with the Department of Public Expenditure. Of course, to do things in government, you need to bring people with you, and that includes cabinet colleagues, and that includes other government departments, primarily Department of Finance, Department of Public Expenditure. I want to push on with those plans in the months ahead, and not just myself, even though I'm entirely committed to them. The Taoiseach is fully on board, the rest of government are fully on board. This is something that needs to happen, and I am committing to bring forward as soon as I possibly can. I know that change can bring challenges and concerns also, but I think the introduction of professorships will play a key role in advancing the TU mission, and specifically in terms of research capacity. It's also an enabler for new courses and new offerings and new provisions, and it is the foundation stone for much of the expansion and ambition that the sector has. I also want to be clear, and conscious who I'm speaking to today, that nothing will be imposed, and there needs to be discussion, agreement and engagement with the TUI as we move forward with any changes and proposals. I want to consider the Institutes of Technology also, because while I'm very proud of the establishment and development of our 5 TUs in just a couple of years, it is also important to remember that we still have 2 excellent institutes of technology, Dundalk Institute of Technology and the Institute of Art, Design and Technology. And they will not be forgotten. They are an important part of our educational fabric, of our educational foundation, and they will be supported by me and by my department. And we will... And that support will take practical form in terms of significant financial supports, expert guidance, as they pursue their strategic plans in the coming years. As Minister, it is not for me to direct academic institutions as to their future fate. It is up to the governing bodies ultimately to decide on an institution's path in the higher education landscape. I understand they made decisions in the past, before my time, and they write those decisions independently and freely, but the support will be provided at whatever journey they take. I may have a particular view, but I respect their autonomy as well. I want to talk about the further education and training sector, and as Minister I want to build the capacity of the FET sector, which is so important in driving economic development and social cohesion. Working along with SOLAS, the Department is supporting the development of the new strategy for further education and training 2025 to 2029, which will be published later this year. We're focusing on how FET can meet priority skills needs, how we can expand access into FET, and develop pathways into higher education. And I also want to flesh out the strategy of the FET transformation and the College of the Future initiatives in the months ahead. I hope to have some detail and some high-level proposals that I can share with you as we develop those concepts, and indeed tangible deliverables in terms of capital spending and real physical infrastructure. I'm pleased to say that the independent panel established to perform a comparative analysis of FET practitioner staffing is in the final stages of producing its report. This will inform the development of a proposed FET practitioner staffing framework. And I'm particularly pleased to be able to report to you today that Colin McAvoy, former Kerry ETB Chief Executive, has agreed to take on the role of FET College Technical Expert within my department. Colin possesses huge expertise, knowledge of the sector and practical experience, and I think he will be a great asset as we move forward with the next phase of FET transformation. One of the first tasks will be the development of that blueprint for the FET College of the future to drive integration, consolidation and specialisation of the current provision. I want to also thank TUI today for your commitment and active participation in establishing the FET consultative framework, which is such an important part of our reform work. I'm sure TUI will continue to make a positive contribution in this and across other fora to support the transformation of the FET sector. I want to move on to the role of adult educators, who play such an important role in enhancing learning, empowering people and contributing to society. The establishment of the adult educator grade last year was a major milestone after what was a long and sometimes frustrating journey. The aim is to have those new contracts in place by September this year for all staff who wish to avail of that opportunity. I am aware from correspondence of ongoing concerns and queries. However, the contracts will provide incremental progression and career path for tutors in the further education and training sector, and that is something that I believe we should all welcome as a step forward. Looking to Youth Reach, we know that adult educators have an essential role to play in ensuring every individual has a chance to learn. At the younger age of the spectrum, in terms of age, the Youth Reach programme is equally valid in that regard. Youth Reach centres work hard to help young people develop the skills they need to progress in education and into the world of work, whilst being welcoming, nurturing and transformative for the individuals passing through and taking the skills and education and learning experience with them. A report last year from the Department of Education's Inspectorate highlighted the importance of Youth Reach and commended many of its practices, including the good training and learning opportunities and the holistic supports and broad range of courses and programmes on offer. It also, most importantly, highlighted the high levels of satisfaction expressed by parents and young people and learners themselves. And I suspect people in this room, you, the educators, didn't need a report to tell you that the Youth Reach programme has been a great success and a great support, but the official recognition is still very welcome. I want to thank the staff here today and express my gratitude to all of you who have made that sector so positive on an ongoing basis. I want to mention apprenticeships, an area where we have taken huge strides in recent years, an area that I want to continue to grow and that I will pledge my full support to. An additional 77 million was invested in apprenticeships in budget 2025. That is the single largest investment in apprenticeship funding since the formation of the department, and I suspect since the beginning of the state. That brings total funding to over 339 million for the year. That's a very significant commitment in real terms from government as to the commitment and supports for the sector. The investment is helping us to expand the number of training places being offered and to position apprenticeship as the go-to place for skills development. The importance of apprenticeships in helping to address skills gaps go to economic development, go to all the things that we need to do as a country, as an economy, to drive forward our workforce, to produce the skills that we need to drive our economy, and ultimately that private economy and private enterprise fuels the public good that we all believe in. And the skills gaps are across construction, across computing, across multiple areas that were never part of traditional apprenticeship structures, but as the system has expanded to many, many more courses in the modern age, across areas that were very, very niche perhaps in the past, or very new in terms of digital, in terms of climate skills, in terms of accounting, in terms of digital online marketing, cybersecurity, as well as our core base of craft apprenticeships, which are so vital and so important to all of us in addressing the skills needs for our housing for all, and the need to build housing for our population. I want to particularly thank TUI for your participation in the task force which oversees the management of apprentice training, waiting lists, and express my appreciation to the responsive TUI members to the National Apprenticeship Office's call for expressions of interest to roll out revalidated craft apprenticeship programmes. We had a lot of work to do in apprenticeships. We've got a lot done, but there is a lot more to do. The task force has contributed to the significant reduction in the length of time apprentices are waiting for their off-the-job training, and the rollout of the revalidated programmes will ensure craft apprentices are receiving the most up-to-date training. These are examples of how we can make progress by working together, and I want to thank again the sector and everybody involved for helping us bridge those gaps, helping those waiting lists to come down, and helping to revalidate and ensure the skills, curriculum and training remains absolutely current and giving exactly the students what they need. It is important also in terms of student supports to re-emphasise the government's commitment to supporting access for all learners. I mentioned already the role of adult educators and youth reach, but I want to draw attention to the important role of the Fund for Students with Disabilities and the Student Assistance Fund in boosting inclusion. More than 17,500 students availed of supports via the Fund for Students with Disabilities in 2024. We've increased funding to over 9.5 million for 2025, an increase of nearly 20%, to ensure students with additional needs can access and integrate fully into our further and higher education systems. We also continue to help those students with exceptional financial needs through the Student Assistance Fund, which benefited over 22,000 people in the 23-24 academic year, with total funding of 19 million in the year 24 to 25. And I and my department and my team will continue to focus on making third level education accessible and inclusive in the years ahead. The message I want to leave you with today is that we must double down on the core strengths of talent, skills and research to sustain competitiveness and seize opportunities emerging from the current global period of change. That is why we are reforming the system, and why with every reform and every policy change or proposal, I want to hear your views and ideally ask your support. It is through working together in a spirit of partnership and compromise that we can build the education system that learners, workers and the country need and deserve. I started by mentioning Abraham Lincoln and his vision for the schoolroom becoming the government, and indeed the staff room, as I said also. I'm going to finish with the Wexford man, John Banville, a great author, great educator, great man of letters, and he talked about how deceptively light the steps are, the truly decisive steps that we take in life, how truly deceptive they are, because sometimes we can take a leap in one bound. And I think you, the members of TUI, the educators, the tutors, the teachers, the officials in this room, you take decisive steps every day. And if they're deceptively light, it's only because you make them so, because you have the power of your words and your rhetoric and your argument, and the power of what you do every single day in schoolrooms around the country. So I want to thank you for leading the learning and leading the learning process and for all that you do. I want to thank you also for inviting me to your conference today, and it's my pleasure to be here and to be part of it. But what Lambuikas Agawal live on Eishtach Lominu. Grab Mahagat.